Because just look around the room at each other. Just catch somebody's eye and connect. Let them know they've been seen. Because ladies, we don't need special effects, we've got us. Right? And we're more than enough. More than enough. Okay, so now we've all reminded ourselves we're connected and awesome. I want to look at how God created us today. Psalm 139 says we're deliberately, fearfully, and wonderfully made. To paraphrase, you're amazing, you're unique, and you're awesome women. And if you're looking around thinking I'm talking to the person next to you or behind you, stop. Right? I mean every single one of you. And we don't often tell ourselves, and I was so kind of grateful for Lynn's talk this morning to remind us of that. And it echoed, I mean, isn't God good that he gives us a similar message to give on this day to you people who he knew who were going to be here. So I don't know who needs to hear that, but I'm going to repeat what Lynn said. Right? You are called, you are chosen, you are made to be awesome. And if you go away just having a glimmer of that today, then we've done our jobs. But I'm a bit of a neuro geek. So I've got a slightly different take on this to Lynn, in as much as, sometimes we not only disconnect from each other, we disconnect from ourselves. That sense of identity, we literally shut ourselves off and we become what we think we are in the head, which is frankly story. It's not even true, and yet we live our lives as if it's true. So I thought, I've been sat in neuroscience lectures for about 20 years, and I sit there, and these are either medical or neuroscience geeks who come from the head base, and I'm sitting there laughing to myself going, yeah, God created that. I can't believe you think it was by chance, that it was an accident. It was deliberate and purposeful, and God is so great. So, you ready to go on a bit of a fast ride through neuro-geekiness? Anatomy and physiology on a Saturday afternoon, what else could you be doing, right? And just in case that doesn't float your boat, I've added in a few photos along, a few jokes along the way. They're a bit dad joke-ish. Christian jokes are a bit, aren't they? But I've kind of put some jokes in just to make sure you're still awake, because if you don't laugh at them, I'll know you've fallen asleep or walked out the door. So let's start with this one. How does Moses make his tea? He brews it. Oh, look, the answer hasn't even come up on the bottom. So he brews it. I would like to say they get better, but I'm not sure. So let's start putting this in some perspective, right? We have just been... I've lost my touch. Oh, he brews it. For some reason, oh, there we go. Hopefully my clicker's connected again to me and it's working again. So let's put this in some perspective, right? We have just been through a radical time in history that we never knew what the heck hit us. We didn't know how to get through it. We dealt with each day as we got through it. And to be honest, I think we're still in it and we're still coming out the far side of it. So I saw this graph in the early days on LinkedIn. It was 2020, long before we'd had the 5th, 6th, 7th, 20th wave. And it was talking about the 4th wave. And this is right where I work. I work in stress and anxiety. I work with people who are suicidal because they don't know how to keep connected to themselves. I work with people who are poorly because they're disconnected from their own neurology. So I saw this graph when everyone was talking about COVID figures, and my mind went straight to that 4th wave. And I think we're only just beginning to see the fallout of that. And I believe there's something we can do about it with each other at that local level, one-on-one level, neighbour level. And that's what I want to kind of focus on today. Those figures down the left-hand side from New Zealand was way before the pandemic started. They're far worse now. Far worse now. These are some of the... I might have to just nod to you. Okay, so these are some of the figures, New Zealand based, because often we get caught in global figures and we go, it's not like that in New Zealand. This lovely little island at the bottom of the world, we're all right. We're not all right, ladies. 1 in 5 younger women and 1 in 10 of older ladies. They didn't say what became older. Now, clearly I'm one of the younger ones.
Of course.
But a lot of women, look around the room. We had 110 people expected here today. You make the numbers of what that means. People in this room are struggling with anxiety and stress. And what do we do as women? We hide it. We stuff it down, we pretend we're okay, we keep on going to work, we keep on caring for everybody, and nobody is even aware of the hurt and the pain that we're holding inside. Maybe that's your stepping outside the line, is actually saying, do you know what, I'm struggling. And I'm okay to be struggling. It doesn't make me broken. It doesn't make me stupid or weak. It's just I'm struggling right now. So I just wanted to share some figures with you, and my sarcasm came in. I'm like going, of course as Christians, we don't get any of this, do we? Because all we have to do, right, is tuck up under the shadow of his wing, and we pray, and we go to our home group and we talk to them. So we don't get stress and anxiety as Christian women, do we? So they would have us say. However, the statistics say something quite different. Again, New Zealand figures. We are falling away from church. If we're falling away from church, are we falling away from God? Why are we falling away from church? What has church got so wrong that in a global pandemic, when we should have been the community that showed love and care and affection and action, so many churches went internal and didn't reach out to the community? God gave us that opportunity to be his hands and his feet in the community. And I'm sorry, I know in my church we failed miserably. So, thought we'd start with that. 9%, only 9% of people in Auckland are regular churchgoers. 9%. We've got something wrong. Ever heard of neurotheology? This is coming into my world. Sorry, I was a medical imaging diagnostic radiographer in my past life, so I love images. I love anatomy. I love how God made us. Neurotheology looks at how we do that. How do we connect with God? How do we change our brains, literally, that we can see on a scanner when we pray, when we meditate, when we go still? So this is not theory. This is not like metaphor and story. This is real. This is so real that some people have developed what's called a prayer helmet. Now, if we put one of these on all your chairs, would you have worn it? If we put it on all the church pews, would you have worn it? Because apparently they now know which parts of your brain light up when you're in prayer and connection with God. So through this prayer helmet, they can stimulate those parts to stimulate a connection with God at will. Kind of wow, kind of, how sad. Have we forgotten how to do it for ourselves? And even if we put it on the chair or gave you one as in a box to take home, would you use it? Because we know how to do it, right? And we choose daily not to connect to him and not to connect to ourselves and not to connect to our neighbours. Okay, so title of this session is We're Wired to Connect, neurologically. I could not resist this picture. Look at the one I've circled. Right? I've not edited that picture. That is a CT scan of somebody's head. Now, have you got a happy brain or a sad brain? Right, and what are you doing about it? If yours looks like that, what are you doing relentlessly on a daily basis to get back in connection with God? Okay, what does the Bible say about neuroscience? Well, surprisingly, maybe, neuroscience as a word isn't in the Bible. In fact, what we know is 90% of what we know about neuroscience has only been known for the last 20 years. So it wasn't in the Bible. And we know our brain's not static. The brain I was born with is not the same brain that I have now. It's constantly growing. If you think your brain is a jelly-like mass that is static, you're deluded. There are constant outreaches. I could have shown you a video, but I had to cut my talk down to 38 minutes. Where literally your neurons are reaching out to connect to other neurons constantly. And whatever you feed it, basically, whatever you repeat over and over, they're the neural pathways that grow. What neural pathways are you growing in your head? So today we know, because we've seen it on scanners, that the brain has spiritual experiences. We can literally show it on a scan. It amazes me that some people think this was all by chance. I've said that before, but it's worth saying again. We can show in our brains what awe and wonder looks like. We can show what positive is as opposed to what negative is. I'm curious how much of your daily conversation fits in that positive box rather than the negative box. How much of your conversation to yourself about yourself fits in the positive box as opposed to the negative box? What proportion, if you had to do a percentage, are you on the positive or the negative? Because your thinking literally changes the rewiring in your brain that literally changes how you live your life. It's our responsibility, ladies. So yeah, step out, but step out for your own life first. Get yourself connected to yourself and to God first. Here are some examples from the Bible, just because. Got to make it biblical, right? Otherwise you won't believe me. So Romans 12:2 talks about renewing our minds. I don't think he was talking about as a one-off. He was talking about something to do daily or even hourly. Colossians 3:2 reminds us to set our minds on things above, not on earthly things. We can get so easily distracted. I was recently caught up in one of these negative kind of mind storms where somebody had hurt me and done something I felt was unethical, and despite all my knowledge, it still kept coming up. So I created myself a metaphorical racing horse blinkers. Right? Literally, and whenever I had one of those thoughts, I would put these blinkers on in my mind's eye and focus back on God and distract myself from all the negativity. It took me a while, it didn't happen overnight, but relentless action got me back in the right place. 2 Corinthians 10 verse 5 talks of taking captive every thought. I'd like to add especially the negative ones. Don't let them take control of your head, because it will rewire you. And Philippians 4 verse 8, tell us how to think on what's right, what's pure, what's lovely, what's admirable. If it's excellent or praiseworthy, think about that. How are you doing on that on a daily basis? Are we relentlessly bringing our minds back to the positive? It's my new word, relentless. It's not a one-off. It's not one therapy session. It's a commitment to every day. Okay, time for a joke. What do you call a sleepwalking nun? Sleepwalking nun. I did warn you they got worse. Right, I did warn you. Okay, so I found this book while I was kind of reading around this. It's not a solely Christian book, but Christianity is well featured within it. And it highlights that we've known this stuff forever and a day. This is not new. I can quote you books in the last 10 years, but all they're doing is regurgitating what we already knew. Did you know, for example, saying grace before food literally changes which nutrients you absorb from the food? How amazing is that? How much more is in the Bible behind what was said that God knew that we have only just beginning to find out through neuroscience? It also changes, it creates calm in your system by saying grace. And you digest food when your system is calm. So it sets your system up to digest the food. What about prayer and meditation? Do you know it makes people kinder, calmer, and reduces the need for revenge? That's comments for me, okay, not any of you, because none of you would ever consider taking revenge on anything. Or that gratitude makes you more honest, as does simply putting your hand on your heart before you speak. That physically moving together, it was beautiful to see ladies dancing this morning. Thank you for that, because you might not think you're dancing. You might be like me, you know. That's my proactive look in church, right? I'm not someone you're going to see doing this or dancing, but I love seeing it. And I knew that my mirror neurons were watching. And so my soul was dancing with you through my mirror neurons. But as we move together, whether we're walking or swaying or rocking, we join in a deeper sense of connection and compassion from each other. Had a beautiful conversation over tea about touch. As we reach out and touch somebody with that loving touch, it matters. And we've lost that kind of okayness of doing that. Even according to research, being involved in religious ceremony regularly reduces anxiety and depression. The cynic in me goes, that depends on the church you're in, right? But let's take then you can access your inner wisdom. And if you link into God's wisdom as well and have that aligned, then there will be no stopping us, ladies. There will be no stopping us. But today I thought we have all been in a rough place, and maybe it would be useful to leave you with a tool that you can use to get to know yourselves a little more. And one of my favourite tools is called polyvagal theory. Now it sounds a bit dry, doesn't it? Polyvagal theory, how can you get excited about that? Woohoo! Stay with me on this one, because it is the most powerful tool I've ever come across to understand your body in a different way and to understand how we react to life, to the pandemic, to conflicts, to whatever's happened in your life. So I haven't got time to go into the whole theory. You are just going to have to trust me, but there's loads around if you want to search it for yourself or come and talk to me later. But you know that sense that last night when you were asleep, you weren't thinking about it, you weren't doing anything consciously, but you carried on breathing, right? I'm guessing. You're here, so I'm guessing you carried on breathing. And we've just had the most beautiful morning tea. And I'm guessing you're not sat there with a little list telling your digestive system what now needs to be fed from your gallbladder and from your liver and from your stomach to digest that. Your body's doing it for you. That's called your autonomic nervous system. And we used to think it was completely and utterly automatic. Ha! No. We have more control over that than we ever realized possible. And that's what I want to share with you. Is if you can change that sort of reaction that we thought was out of our control, that just happens, that moment when you lose it with somebody and you don't even know it, that wasn't like me. Those reactions are there and they're normal. They don't make us broken. They're there for a purpose. But if we could moderate them, if we could choose, would that be powerful to you? And it's as simple as climbing up and down a ladder. If anyone's a little bit disabled, it's all right, there's a chairlift. And it's about being aware of some traffic lights. So we go from green, which is at the top. This is called ventral vagal. It's also called social engagement. It's also called I'm okay, the world's okay. I just made that up, but that's what it's about. It's not really called that. This is where we feel safe. We feel safe to be ourselves. We feel safe to be in connection with other people. Now, it's not like we have to spend 24/7 up there. God made us with the other two parts of the ladder. They have a purpose. But to be able to get yourself back up there when you've been triggered is a really useful skill to be able to do. But sometimes what happens is that the stress keeps ramping up, the pandemic goes on for another year, the work conflict, whatever, you get fired by Elon Musk by email, whatever the stressor is. Is that too political? I'm sorry. So we drop down, and we drop down into sympathetic, which is the next one, which for most people, if you've heard of this at all, you might have heard the words fight and flight. Right, we tend to have a response that you either fight, literally, in the old days when you were being chased by a tiger. These days, it's more about standing up and having your voice, being part of the argument, making sure that you have your say. And for other people, they don't do that. They will drop into flight, which is, I don't think I have a voice at all. I don't think that there's any point in me wasting my energy. I'm going to get out of here. Teenagers do this really well. They storm out and slam the door, don't they? Is that just my teenagers? And if you keep being stressed, we're not designed to be in that place for a long time. Our bodies can't cope with it. We get detriment pretty damn quickly. So if you keep being stressed, your body drops again into what's called dorsal vagal, which is, I'm out of here. I've had enough. I can't cope. And there's degrees in all of these. It's like it's taught as if it's 3 steps on a ladder, but I actually think there's a ladder in each of the steps. And that initially it might just be you walk away and go and shut yourself in the office at work. But at the extreme, this is when we're talking burnout. This is when we're talking people can't even get out of bed. And at the ultimate extreme, we're talking dissociation, where they leave the bodies completely. So this is being used a lot now in therapy. It was actually written more than 25 years ago by a guy called Stephen Porges. But it's absolutely kind of coming into its own through therapy at the moment. Now these next little slides that I share with you, I've left there because there's some lovely words that describe those states, because language is important, right? So some of the words up there you can see for ventral vagal, you feel connected, warm, open-hearted, curious, engaged, capable, you can read them. You might add your own words in. But as you just feel into those, you listen to those words in your head, what happens in your body? It's almost like a nice little warm hug. It's like you feel good, you feel okay. Whereas if you drop down to that next level at sympathetic, out of control, too much, confusing, overwhelming, angry, confrontational, ready to run. What do they feel like in your body? They're not nearly so pleasant. And yet so many of us are living way too many hours of a day in that drop-down state, a stress state. Okay, time for a joke. It must be bad if you're droning. So if we drop down, if that stress keeps piling up and we drop down, what's the language at the bottom? And it's, dark, foggy, fuzzy, silent, out of focus, cold, numb, hopeless, helpless. You can almost feel your body going into withdrawal, back into the fetal position. My body's not broken when I do that. My body's saying, I have dealt with too much and I need a rest. Down here is where you do rest and rejuvenation. In fact, if you just add a little bit of the ventral vagal safety in it, down here is stillness and meditation. It's my time in the flotation tank. That's my treat. I do a flotation tank every month. Complete and utter sensory deprivation, where you're just with you. If you haven't tried it, give it a go. If you need to reconnect with yourself, it's a great place to do it. So this is polyvagal theory. See, you thought it was going to be dull, didn't you, and boring? This is all part of our human physiology. This is how we are wired. This is our nervous system. It's normal. If you know this is normal and you know the reactions are normal, how does it change how you approach somebody? Someone who loses it in a meeting and just shouts at you. It's not about you. They've dropped into sympathetic. Someone who doesn't return your texts or your calls, someone who disappears for a year or 2 years in a global pandemic. They're not ignoring you, they're deeply hurting, and they've fallen into that dorsal vagal. They're desperately longing for connection and someone to hold them and say, I see you. And we're so awkward with it, we don't get in touch. We don't know how to get in touch with someone who's having a rough time. We don't know how to have that conversation. So the term courageous conversation is often used about diversity, but actually I think we need to start using it with mental health. We need to have courageous conversations. We need to go up and say, are you okay? No, let me ask you again, are you really okay? Because I didn't believe you the first time. What's really going on? Okay, so we can blend slides. I love this quote from Teresa of Avila about contemplative prayer. A close sharing between friends. Is that where you pray to God from? A close sharing between friends. Taking time alone to be with Him who knows that He loves us. That's dorsal vagal, isn't it? But with ventral vagal safety. So it's okay to go up and down the ladder. It's perfectly okay. It's good to know and recognize where you are. Decide whether in that moment it's the most appropriate place to be. Fundamentally, your nervous system is not there to do right and wrong, ethics and morality. It's not there to make you happy. Your nervous system is built and wired to make you safe. That will always be its default mechanism. So if you drop down that ladder, it's because your body has perceived some form of threat. What you need right then is someone to come alongside you and go, I see it. So how do we use these? Well, on your desks, there's a couple of ladders. You want one of each page, basically, if you want to play along. I have got no idea what's going on with the time. I haven't even looked at my watch, so I could have already gone beyond my 38 minutes, I don't know. We're not going to have time for you to sit and fill them out kind of, in full detail, but I want to give you the gist of how you use these so that you can go away and do it in your own space. Go away and pray it through. Go away and journal if you're a journaler. Now, very deliberately, I don't want somebody dropping into some deep sympathetic response or dorsal vagal response here and now, okay? Is that a deal? I'm good, but group therapy is a little bit more difficult. I want you thinking of something when you're reflecting on it that's maybe a 1 or 2 or 3 out of 10. And especially when you go to dorsal vagal, I want you looking at it through the safety feature of a door, right? So you're not even on top of it, you're looking at it out through a door, a peephole. And we're going to start deliberately in the middle, not at the top. We want to end on the top. So we're going to start in that sympathetic. And just bring to mind a time when you've been triggered. When you had some form of threat perception. Someone looked at you the wrong way, or shouted at you, or didn't listen to you, or whatever your story is. And as you just re-feel that, name the emotion. What are you feeling? We're rubbish at naming emotions as human beings. Do you know we have 3,600 emotions? I don't think I could name anywhere near that amount. Most of us operate between 6 and 12. So for the sake of today, let it be one of your 6 or 12, but what emotion are you feeling? When you've got that, oh, am I okay? I kind of see it as a meerkat. I've been alert, something's happened, something's flown overhead. So what are you feeling and naming the emotion? And as you begin to feel into that emotion, what sounds are there around you? Are there lots of sounds, or has it gone quiet? This movie that you've got, what's happened to the sound that goes with it? What metaphors come up for you? It'll be different. Some of you will resonate to one of these questions, some to others. You don't need to get them all. If there was a colour, what colour would it be? What colour's sympathetic to you? And be curious, is your sympathetic fight or flight? It's not right or wrong, it's just how we're wired, we just go. I do a bit of both. I'll stand and fight till I think I'm wasting my time. And then it's like, I'm out of here. So I do both. It's good for me to know that, because I can sense when I'm turning from I'm having a voice, having a say, and then choose whether or not I want to walk away, rather than feeling like I've walked away and actually that's not what I wanted at all. Does that make sense? Okay, so what colour is it? What are you aware of in your body? For me, that's sympathetic. Like, my muscles tense up. My breathing goes shallow. I can feel it. What's your feeling of when you go into that position? If I was videoing you, what would I be seeing? What are your behaviours? How are you looking at other people? Are you looking at other people? What are you thinking? What's the story you're telling yourself in your head? And is it one of those old stories that makes you the person in the wrong? We do that way too much. How are you sleeping at night while this is going on? What are you doing to soothe yourself? Coming on a women's conference? Being busy? Eating? Smoking? Drinking? We all have soothers, because our bodies will try to get us back to that ventral vagal in any way, shape or form it can. And then those last 2 questions are like the beliefs around it. If you were to complete the sentence, I am, and the world is, what would flow after those for you? And what's really interesting for me as a therapist is knowing that beliefs change at different levels of the ladder. So if I'm working with someone in sympathetic or dorsal vagal, their beliefs even about the possibility of change are going to be very different than if I can settle their nervous system back to the top of that tree. So let's just flick it down one level to to dorsal vagal. And remember, you're looking at this through a tiny hole in a door. You're not going to jump and dive straight in. But similar questions. What colour is dorsal vagal to you? That moment when you go, do you know what? I can't do it anymore. I am so exhausted. I can't take it anymore. What colour? What words? What sensations in your body? It'll feel completely different. The words will be completely different. And who are you being in that place? I am. I am. So often we hear, I'm useless, I'm hopeless, I'm wrong, I'm broken. One of the most powerful things I can do to my clients who come to me is go right from the off, whatever you tell me, and I don't know what's going to come up, but whatever you tell me, let me tell you my belief about you before we start. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. That's where we're coming from. Let's work from that position. Now, they might not be there yet. So I hold the anchor in ventral space, and hopefully over time take their hand and walk them back up the ladder. Okay, back up the top of the ladder. You can dive in full force, deep end, ventral vagal. I'm okay, the world's okay, the world's safe. I can do what I'm meant to do. I can step out the line and act for God. I can be that awesome person that I know I am, but I'd forgotten. What's that like for you? What colours? What movement? What words go through your head? What's your I am statement from that place? It's going to be quite different. And what's the world is place from that place? I think so many of us have been spending 3 years tucked away where we've even been told that connection is unsafe. Where we have to hide our face. So we can't even get, like even as I do that, can you hear me properly? Right, I found my hearing really challenged with people with masks on. We've got to get back to being connected, feeling safe to be connected. I'm not dissing the decisions we made at that time. We saved thousands of lives. But right now, how do we come back, having learned to stay inside on our own because it's safe to do so? How do we get back into good connection in that way? You can have some fun with this. I would recommend you really spend some time going through this map for yourself, going through the questions, feeling into it. What triggers you down as well, really useful self-awareness. What triggers you down and what brings you up? And what brings you up from dorsal vagal is very different than what brings you up from sympathetic. If I'm down in dorsal vagal, it's a ladder. I don't jump straight to the top. I've got to go through sympathetic fight or flight activation. So I've got to find a safe way of doing that. What's a safe way of mobilising my body? Is it going for a walk out in nature? Getting up and dancing? Singing? Humming? All sorts of ways you can do safe stressing to bring you back. And once you're in sympathetic and you want to go to that kind of calm, alert, beautiful, not relaxed, chilled out Zen place, actually a beautiful, calm, alert place, then you might be doing all sorts of other things like gratitude and journaling and humming and rocking and a different form of mindful walking out in the day-to-day. So just spend some time going through what that is for you, and hopefully it will also change your conversations with other people. When you recognise where they are, seeing them for a normal human being who has been triggered and wired to be triggered that way, what do they need? You might get a very different answer coming from that place. I've given up on my clicker, I think. I don't even know if we're on track. There we go. So as part of me learning about this tool, one of the tasks we were given was to say which animal represents each state for you. So you can get really creative. You can draw pictures of each place. These are my animals that came up for me. Remember, I'm not broken. Whatever you read into those, I'm not broken. But it gives you a sense of, even the colour. The colours were very different in each place for me. The words were very different in each place for me. And so now I know what my ventral vagal is, and I know joy for me is yellow. I have all sorts of things around my being that are yellow. My diary for next year is yellow. Some of my pens are yellow. What's your colour of that ventral vagal? Put it around your environment so it's prompting you unconsciously, without you even thinking about it, to take you back into that place. Okay, I've completely gone off track of my notes. I'm just going to trust that I've covered it. Bible joke, time for joke. Seemed appropriate. We're talking about wisdom, being connected. Okay, I am going to read my last bit just to make sure that I at least get my key message across, even if all the rest of it was ad-lib along the way. Sorry, go back one slide. What's the what? Oh, it's a tortoise. It's a tortoise that's gone back into a shell. That's my dorsal vagal, right? There's solid shell around me. No one can get to me. I'm safe inside. Thanks for asking, Helen. Okay, so I hope I've given you just a snapshot of some of the amazing ways God has wired us from the inside out to connect, firstly, to ourselves, then to others, then to him, and to have the ability and the knowledge of how to change our own internal wiring. He has also connected us to be wired to each other. And we're only now just finding out the importance of that. Did you know that loneliness, see, I've gone off my notes again already. Loneliness is now the most significant health detriment that there is. It's more than obesity, it's more than 15 fags a day. And everyone can be in a crowd and still feel lonely, and some people can be on their own and not feel lonely. So I'm not talking about whether you're sat in a crowd. I'm talking about whether you feel you belong, whether you feel lonely. It literally knocks 15 years off your life. Surely as church, our job is to meet people where they're at, give them that sense of belonging and connection. We are literally saving their lives by doing so. And he created us to be wired to him. Connecting to him literally changes the wiring in our heads, hearts, and guts. And he's the glue, the laminin, that holds us together, quite literally. It has been my absolute pleasure sharing some of my passion and neuro-geekiness with you. I hope you're inspired to go and find out more. Do feel free to stalk me on my social media. Get in touch if you want to know more about what I do. You will see lots of posts like this, probably not the Bible jokes on social media. And remember, if you get triggered, and we will, because life happens around us, first thing you do is stop. Be aware, feel into your body. Where am I at on my ladder? Is that an appropriate response for this context at this moment? And if it is, that's okay. If it's not, and it's not resourceful for you, what can I do? What's my menu of options that will take me back up the ladder? And then you do that relentlessly until you get back up where you want to be. I can't resist just leaving you with one more cartoon. Is it time to reconnect to God? Genuinely been my pleasure to talk today.